China, now a world power on the rise, once a great Eastern empire whose wealth and resources were the envy of the West. At the start of the 16th century, China stood at a crossroads. Throughout the 1400s, the Middle Kingdom, as it dubbed itself, had been extensively involved in overseas exploration and trade. The expeditions of imperial eunuch Zheng He exemplified this economic outreach. However, times were changing, and the Ming court decided that China ought to alter its outward economic policy and instead turn inward, relying on the export of such lucrative trade goods as silk, tea, and spices for revenue. The era of China actively searching for trading partners and overseas tribute states was, for the most part, over. Now, if Westerners sought trade with the increasingly insular Middle Kingdom, they would have to approach the Dragon Throne as suppliants. Until the dawn of the 19th century, China struggled to solidify its place in the modernizing world. Beset by increasingly aggressive European nations seeking access to its valuable commercial goods, the Middle Kingdom faced the challenge of coping with European interests and establishing a favorable balance of trade, while at the same time maintaining its cultural identity, traditions, and political autonomy. The epicenter of China's interactions with the West was the bustling port city of Canton. From 1760 to 1800, by order of the emperor, it was the only city in which European merchants were allowed to operate. Massive amounts of goods were exported from Canton to the West, especially tea, for which the British had developed an affinity. Trade was facilitated by foreign merchants in establishments known as hongs, which were trading posts and warehouses for commercial goods located along Canton's waterfront. By the 1700s, Western nations trading with the Middle Kingdom included Britain, France, Spain, Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, and others. Under the Ming Dynasty, one of the most sought-after products of China was porcelain. The merchants from Europe, along with China's own elite class, inspired such technology as factories and assembly line production to keep up that supply of the iconic white and blue porcelain, which was so commonly used abroad that it became referred to in English simply as China. Between this and China's other main export, tea, Britain was spending millions of pounds per year for its exotic imports. This transaction was carried out via payments of silver ingots. The flow of vast quantities of silver into China was so rapid that it generated widespread inflation in the empire. The Ming and Qing emperors administrated their empires from the Forbidden City. Although the palace complex was historically intended to serve as a barrier between China's ruler and the outside world, under the Qing, two of the Middle Kingdom's most influential emperors would leave its walls and venture out into the countryside to hear the concerns of their people and demonstrate their power. The first of these remarkable rulers was known as the Kangxi Emperor. Kangxi began his first southern inspection tour in 1684. During his journey, he traveled throughout his vast empire, addressing his subjects and establishing unity while reinforcing Manchu imperial authority through shows of military force. This latter objective was particularly important, as the tour came only a few years after the revolt of the three feudatories had been suppressed by the Qing forces. The Kangxi Emperor would go on to complete 5 more tours during his reign. Although the tours helped to promote the image of a strong and involved government, some of Kangxi's subjects were not so thrilled with the expensive preparations for a royal visit.
Last time when the preceding emperor was inspecting, our House of Jia was administrating shipbuilding in Yangzhou. Just one time of the inspection, the silvers were spent like flowing water.
One of Kangxi's greatest achievements was the compilation of what became known as the Kangxi Dictionary. Published in 1716, it included the pronunciation and meaning for each character in the Chinese language. Governmentally, China remained hugely committed to Neo-Confucianism, a philosophy that emphasized the individual's service to the state and the importance of such virtues as filial piety and social harmony. On governance and relations with foreigners, Kangxi said,
Be kind to men from afar and keep the able ones near. Nourish the people. Think of the profit of all as being the real profit and the mind of the whole country as being the real mind. Protect the state before danger comes and govern well before there is any disturbance. Be always diligent and always careful.
During his reign, the Kangxi Emperor faced increasing attention from the West, and it was not purely economic. The Qing rulers welcomed Jesuit missionaries into their courts, but remained hesitant to allow them into the country's interior, for fear that they might try to spread their Western religion among the people. Kangxi said this of the Jesuits.
It is contrary to orthodoxy, and it is only because these apostles have a thorough knowledge of the mathematical sciences that the state employs them. Take care not to forget that.
The Kangxi Emperor ruled until his death in 1722. The next notable Chinese emperor of the period was his grandson, Qianlong, who took the throne in 1711. Like his grandfather Kangxi, the Qianlong Emperor also made 6 inspection tours, the first of which began in 1751. Like those of his grandfather, the tours carried out by the Qianlong Emperor were grand affairs intended to show off the power of the ruling dynasty and reinforce the idea of unity under Manchurian rule. Particularly proud of these tours, the Qianlong Emperor in his old age said,
In my 50 years of reign, there are 2 major achievements. The first is my campaign in the West, and the second is my inspection in the South.
As he worked to cultivate his empire and maintain the image of a strong Manchu ruler in the eyes of his subjects, the Qianlong Emperor faced a new challenge, this time from the West. In 1793, the British sent Lord George Macartney to ask the aging Qianlong Emperor for permission to increase trade opportunities between the Middle Kingdom and Great Britain. Specifically, Britain wanted China to open more trade ports in which English merchants could conduct their business. Macartney never received a reply from the emperor in person. Instead, the ruler of the Middle Kingdom simply left a letter on his throne for Macartney to deliver to King George. It read,
Hitherto, all European nations, including your own country's barbarian merchants, have carried on their trade with our celestial empire at Guangdong. Such has been the procedure for many years. Although our celestial empire possesses all things in prolific abundance and lacks no product within its borders, there was therefore no need to import the manufactures of outside barbarians in exchange for our own produce. Should your vessels touch shore, your merchants will assuredly never be permitted to land or to reside there, but will be subject to instant expulsion. In that event, your barbarian merchants will have had a long journey for nothing. Do not say that you were not warned in the due time. Tremblingly obey and show no negligence.
The Qianlong Emperor's illustrious reign ended with his death in 1799. On the threshold of the 19th century, the Middle Kingdom now faced a changing global, political, and economic climate. Over time, European interests in the riches of the East only increased, and their methods for extracting China's wealth and resources became bolder and more elaborate. Particularly concerning for both China and the West was the growing imbalance of silver. With Britain rapidly depleting its stores of the currency and China receiving more than it knew what to do with, a conflict between the two was almost inevitable. However, it would not be until the mid-1800s that their tenuous relationship would reach a boiling point. For the moment, China remained as it had for centuries, the Celestial Empire, proud power of the East, slave to none.